Hello and welcome to another episode of the Chaos Chronicles.
Navigating the randomness.
I'm Jess.
I'm Con.
And welcome back to me still being sick.
Yeah, sorry. Just a reminder, you can find us at all of our social media linked below in the description. It would be really cool if you checked it out, and even cooler if you subscribed and followed. That way you can be alerted to all of our new and interesting Who Knows What Wednesday episodes like today, as well as our book reviews, which release on Saturday. Right now, we are currently doing Eclipse, which is the third out of 4 books for the Twilight series.
Yes.
And it's an adventure.
We're getting there. We're almost done with book 3.
Almost on the third book. We're getting there. And for those who are watching, before you jump to conclusions, if you see Jess and I drinking, this is not alcohol. It looks like alcohol.
Not.
It's not. It is not sponsored, but would be happy for.
Would love to have you guys sponsor us.
No kidding. LMNT sparkling electrolyte water. It's actually really good.
Very delicious. Always love LMNT.
Always love it. And if you've watched our wedding episode, which is an early one, and it is chaotic, it's second episode, I think, we talk about how LMNTs got us through both of our weddings.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So thank you to them. Real quick, trigger warning for today's episode. We are going to be talking about suicide as well as depression and eating disorders and
mental health in general.
Mental health in general. Yes. So just fair warning before you proceed. All right. On that note, we're doing a case file today, and we are going to be in 2014, which
recent
compared to 11 years ago. Yeah.
Recent compared to what we normally do.
Compared to our normal episodes, yes. This is one of our more recent ones. But I was just very shocked when I realized it was 11 years ago because what?
Scary.
Very, very. Jess and I graduated high school in 2015. So 2014, we remember this.
We're seniors in high school.
Yes. And I'm wondering if you're going to know this story because it is one that rocked the nation. It was definitely one that I'd be shocked if you hadn't heard of it.
Well, I was...
Even with your parents, I feel like you... Yeah, this one was a big one.
Okay. Well, let's get to it.
Let's go. So let's set the scene. 2014. The Ebola epidemic was going on. It started and spread from Guinea, Liberia, and Sierra Leone. The first person in the U.S. to die of Ebola died in October of 2014. He was a 42-year-old man. The search for the Malaysia Airlines Flight 370. Do you know about that one?
I remember hearing about it, but I don't.
Got to do an episode. That's on my list. But that flight disappeared carrying 239 people from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing. Robin Williams died at 63 years old.
I remember that.
I know. Love Robin Williams. El Chapo, the world's most wanted drug kingpin, was captured in Mexico.
Oh.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. And little relation to us here, Serial, which was a podcast, debuts, and it's considered to actually be the start of the podcast boom that we know today and what got us going here.
Oh, cool.
It's not a true crime podcast, though. But the name Serial, I feel like it should have been, but it's fine.
Missed opportunity.
Although speaking of opportunities, I'm not going to say her name right, and I feel horrible. Malala Yousafzai. That was a 17-year-old girl who was shot in the face in her home country, Pakistan, for advocating for girls' right to education. Yep. She won the Nobel Peace Prize.
I forgot about
17 years old. Yeah, her face was everywhere.
Yep.
Like, big advocate for girls' education, again, not only in her home country of Pakistan, but around the world.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Wow.
Yeah, I know. 2014. And then in pop culture, some of the biggest songs of the year was Happy by Pharrell Williams, which you're lying if you don't have the theme of that in your head now.
Oh, boy. I do.
Not only that, we had All About That Bass by Meghan Trainor. Love that one. And Habits, Stay High by Toflo.
Oh, heck yeah.
Mm-hmm. I've heard so many amazing a cappella versions of that where
Mm-hmm.
women like drop. And I'm
Oh,
like, that's cool. But all these cool things are happening. We're going to focus specifically on Massachusetts. So our story really started on September 12th, 1995. Conrad Henry Roy III was born. He was a typical American kid. He worked with his dad, grandpa, and uncle for years in their family's marine salvage business called Tucker Roy Marine Towing and Salvaging, which served the New England, Massachusetts area. For the rest of this episode, I'm going to refer to Conrad as Roy.
okay.
So, in the spring of 2014, Roy earned his captain's license from the Northeast Maritime Institute after 3 months of night classes, in addition to working and being in his senior year of high school. Roy graduated high school on the honor roll with a 3.88 GPA, which is pretty good,
Dang.
especially with everything he had going on. And for those who aren't aware of the US grading
Oof.
system, that's hard to do.
That's really hard to do.
Like most grading systems, if you are between a 90 and 100, you have an A. Some
Mm-hmm.
grading systems are 94 to 100, you get an A. Like it's strict. So boy was doing good. Roy, throughout his high school career, had played baseball, he rowed crew, and ran track. He had been accepted to Fitchburg State University to study business and was set to go there in the fall. Roy had met his girlfriend, Michelle Carter, in Florida in 2012, while each was down to visit relatives. As fate would have it, both were from Massachusetts and lived not too far from each other, but they just attended different high schools, so they never crossed paths. Michelle was born on August 11, 1996, in Massachusetts, and was also a high school athlete like Roy. Despite only living 35 miles away from each other, they didn't often meet in person and mainly pursued their relationship over text and social media messaging. Does it feel a little bit like Jeremy?
I want to be wrong, but I think I know this case.
Yeah, probably.
I want to be wrong. I hope I'm wrong.
I.
Oh, gosh.
So, we need to talk about Roy's mental health. Roy had allegedly, according to court documents, been physically hit by his dad and verbally abused by his grandpa. I say allegedly just because I don't have anything that confirmed that as a fact, so I'm going based off what has been reported. Because of this, he had a lot going on upstairs. In October 2012, Roy attempted suicide after the divorce of his parents. Michelle Carter, that's how I'm going to refer to her from here out, the girlfriend, had learned of Roy's plan and actively discouraged him from doing it and suggested he seek professional help. This same situation happened once again in 2014, with Carter again successfully talking Roy out of going through with his plan. Now, both Roy and Carter, based on their text messages that we can see, they bonded over they both had depression, anxiety, a very desperate need for validation. Carter struggled with eating disorders, and they both just really connected on an emotional level, which is a little bit different than what you might expect from a 17 and an 18-year-old texting each other. So in June of 2014, Roy texted Carter with the suggestion that they form a Romeo and Juliet suicide pact. Yeah.
I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
Yikes.
On Saturday, July 12th, 2014, Roy committed suicide by poisoning himself with carbon monoxide fumes in his truck by rigging a gasoline-powered water pump in a Kmart parking lot in Massachusetts. He was 2 months away from his 19th birthday. His body was found the next day by police during a routine check at 5 p.m. A week later, his funeral was held, and the Captain Conrad H. Roy III Scholarship Fund at the Northeast Maritime Institute in Fairhaven, Massachusetts, where he had earned his captain's license, they established this scholarship fund in Roy's memory. Now we get into the WTF of it all.
There's, as my memory serves, oh boy, y'all better strap in.
It's a lot. So 3 months after Roy's death, Carter, again, his girlfriend, organized a softball tournament to raise funds for mental health awareness. Carter had also been posting to Twitter saying things like, quote, "I can't believe today already marks 4 months without you. I love you and miss you always, Conrad," end quote. Carter also changed from texting with Roy to texting with his mom, Lynn Roy. And this texting conversation between Lynn and Carter continued throughout all of 2014. It was very much they were connecting with each other.
Mm-hmm.
Same with Roy's sister. Carter texted Lynn that, quote, "I saw my life with him and that you need to know this is not your fault," end quote. In these messages, Carter also told Lynn that Roy, quote, "didn't think he'd be a good husband or father and didn't want his kid to have the same problems," end quote. In about this same time frame, 3 months after Roy's death, Carter met with police and investigators at her high school to give an interview after police had found concerning messages on Roy's phone between him and Carter. In this interview, investigators seized her phone and later her computer. It was discovered that Carter had changed her tune from trying to dissuade Roy from committing suicide to instead encouraging him
Yep.
and even reassuring him that he should still kill himself when he started to waver and express doubt. Remembering this?
Oh, I remember. Yeah, honestly, as soon as you said her name, the first time I was like, is that? No, no, no. No, no. And then, oh yeah, I am well aware of this case, unfortunately.
Yep. Yeah, like I said, I was going to be shocked if you didn't know this one.
No, this one was, I remember like being in high school, senior year, walking around, everybody was talking about this case.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it happened this summer right before our senior year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then all of this is unfolding during.
Mm-hmm. Like during the fall.
Yep.
Yeah, no, it was everywhere. It was, you
Oh
would
my
be hard
gosh.
pressed if you were in the US at this time not to have seen a magazine, a news report, someone talking about it. Like it was everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, as I mentioned, there was concerning texts that the police had found. Many of their text conversations are available from the subsequent
Mm-hmm.
trial. And I've got a couple of those conversations here because I just really want to highlight some of this to be like,
It's really bad.
it's really bad. And if you notice any of this sounds like someone in your life maybe encouraging you or enabling you to do certain behaviors, this might be time to reflect. So, one of the conversations starts with Roy saying, "I'm overthinking. Carter, I thought you wanted to do this. The time is right and you're ready. You just need to do it. You can't keep living this way. You just need to do it like you did last time." He had overdosed on acetaminophen and been hospitalized previously.
That's a ooh. That's mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. And not think about it and just do it, babe. You can't keep doing this every day. End quote. Another conversation on July 8th, 4 days before Roy's suicide. Carter, so are you sure you don't want to kill yourself tonight? Roy, what do you mean, am I sure? Carter, like, are you definitely not doing it tonight? Roy, IDK yet, I'll let you know. Carter, because I'll stay up with you if you want to do it tonight. Roy, another day wouldn't hurt. Carter, you can't keep pushing it off though. That's all you keep doing. Additional conversations spanning July 4th to July 12th. I'm going to highlight Carter's messages, but there's a little bit of spacing in the dates between this. Carter stated, quote, "You're going to have to prove me wrong because I just don't think you really want this. You just keep pushing it off to another night and say you'll do it, but you never do." Another message, Carter, in all caps, "See, that's what I mean. You keep pushing it off. You just said you were going to do it tonight, and now you're saying eventually, ... Carter again, "But I bet you're going to be like, oh, it didn't work because I didn't tape the tube right or something like that, ... I bet you're going to say an excuse like that." Carter again, "Do you have the generator?" Roy, "Not yet, LOL." Carter, in all caps, Well, when are you getting it? Carter again. You better not be bullshitting me and say you're going to do this and then purposely get caught. In a conversation between spanning July 11th and 12th, Roy, I'm just too sensitive. I want my family to know there was nothing they could do. I am entrapped in my own thoughts. Like, no, I would be happy if they had no guilt about it because I have a bad feeling that this is going to create a lot of depression between my parents/sisters. I'm overthinking everything. Fuck. I just got to stop and do it. This one really takes the cake for me. Carter, I think your parents know you're in a really bad place. I'm not saying they want you to do it, but I honestly feel like they can accept it. They know there's nothing they can do. They've tried helping, everyone's tried. But there's a point that comes where there isn't anything anyone can do to save you, not even yourself. And you've hit that point, and I think your parents know you've hit that point. You said your mom saw a suicide thing on your computer and she didn't say anything. I think she knows it's on your mind and she's prepared for it. Everyone will be sad for a while, but they will get over it and move on. They won't be in depression. I won't let that happen. They know how sad you are, and they know you are doing this to be happy, and I think they will understand and accept it. They'll always carry you in their hearts. Yeah. She sent that to him. I have more, but I'm going to take a break for a quick second because I just want people to process that.
It's even still, like, I remember hearing these messages. This is not the first time I've heard these. I'm pretty sure I've read through all that was available at the time. I'm pretty sure all of us did.
Yeah. Doesn't make it any easier to hear a second time or
No,
third.
it doesn't. And it's like, can you even believe that this is a real person? That this is real. This is not a movie. This is real life.
This doesn't even sound like Jeremy Sankey and Jasmine Richardson from our 4-part series Wednesday episode. Go check it out. Smells like
Teen angst.
teen angst. Yeah, pedophilia in the suburbs.
Yeah.
Like that one was messed up, but like this just feels sickening.
I think that's the manipulation part of it.
Oh, heavy on the manipulation.
This is, oof.
No. So continuing with the conversation, Roy, I don't want anyone hurt in the process though. I meant when they open the door, all the carbon monoxide is going to come out. They can't see it or smell it, whoever opens the door. Carter, they will see the generator and know that you died of CO, ... A little while later, Roy, hey, can you do me a favor? Carter, yes, of course. Roy, just be there for my family, smiley face. Carter, Conrad, of course I will be there for your family. I will help them as much as I can to get through this. I'll tell them about how amazing their son/brother truly was. A little while later, Roy started expressing doubts. Roy, IDK, I'm freaking out again. I'm overthinking. Carter, I thought you wanted to do this. The time is right and you're ready. You just need to do it. You can't keep living this way. You just need to do it like you did last time and not think about it and just do it, babe. You can't keep doing this every day. Roy, I do want to, but like I'm freaking for my family, I guess. IDKKK. Carter, Conrad, I told you I'll take care of them. Everyone will take care of them to make sure they won't be alone and people will help them get through it. We talked about this. They will be okay and accepted. People who commit suicide don't think this much and they just do it. July 12th. Carter, so I guess you aren't going to do it then. All that for nothing. I'm just confused, like you were so ready and determined. Roy, I am gonna eventually. I really don't know what I'm waiting for, ... but I have everything lined up. Carter, no, you're not, Conrad. Last night was it. You keep pushing it off and say you'll do it, but you never do. It's always going to be that way if you don't take action. You're just making it harder on yourself by pushing it off. You just have to do it. Do you want to do it now? Roy, is it too late? IDKK, it's already light outside. I'm going to go back to sleep. Love you. I'll text you tomorrow. Carter, no? ? It's probably the best time now because everyone's sleeping. Just go somewhere in your truck and no one's really out right now because it's an awkward time. If you don't do it now, you're never going to do it. And you can say you'll do it tomorrow, but you probably won't. A little while later, Carter, you just need to do it, Conrad, or I'm going to get you help. You can't keep doing this every day. Roy, okay, I'm going to do it today. Carter, do you promise? Roy, I promise, babe. I have to now. Carter, like right now? Roy, where do I go? Frowning face. Carter, and you can't break a promise and just go to a quiet parking lot or something. Those were the texts I have. That's not
Yep.
all of them, but those are the ones I thought to highlight.
It's just, I have no words, really. This is horrible.
Yeah. No, this is so sad that he expressed doubts and instead she just, I don't.
Instead of reassurance, hey, let's get you help,
Mm-hmm.
she does.
Turns around. It's how incessant she was and how pushy. Like, as I was reading this last night, I was questioning if I should put the text messages in, but this is publicly available information. My whole thing with that is, if you look at the pictures of Conrad Roy and Michelle
Mm-hmm.
Carter, they look like any other 17, 18-year-old kid in the US. Like, they look like every other person that went to our high schools. It's just, and that's what makes it so much more abhorrent.
And it was the same time period that we were in high school, too.
Same age. Can you imagine? Because we were Michelle's age, Carter's age. She's a month older than I am, a couple months older than you.
Mm-hmm.
Can you imagine doing that at that age, what we were doing? Or what she
Absolutely
was doing,
not.
sorry.
Absolutely not.
No, like, I can't even grasp telling someone, like, even as a joke, I don't say that, to go kill
No,
yourself. Like, I don't.
it's a serious thing, and you never know who is on the edge and what little thing could possibly trigger that. I mean, I'm a first responder. I arrive with the people that find these people. We're with the families who have found them. Like,
No.
to even remotely think of, I mean, obviously this is real. It's so hard for me to wrap my head around it because
I can't.
after seeing the aftermath of so many, I
You know, that's the thing. I say this in a way that I don't wish someone to be in this situation. At the same time, I feel like people who truly do take mental health and suicide so lightly, I want them to be with you when you are on those responding calls and be like,
mm-hmm.
look, it's all fun and games, it's all jokes until you're right here and
Yeah.
you see what this really means.
Yeah. I mean, at our age too, going through middle school, high school, we were really the start of the spike of the suicides.
Teen suicide. Yeah,
Yeah.
because we were the start of the online bullying.
Yeah.
Which, oh my God, we can do an entire episode on that. But just the stuff that I saw, stuff that happened to me, happened to people that
Yeah.
I knew. Like, it's through, there was a page created in middle school that was, I'm not going to say her name because no, I'm not going to, but it was this girl and it was something like blank is weird. And it was a picture from her Facebook page that was edited with horns and like acne and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And people just made fun of her. And there was
Yeah.
so many people that liked that page. And it popped up on my social media feed. And I asked my friends the next day on the bus, I'm like, did you guys see that? And several of them were like, oh yeah, no, we're on it. And I was like, she was the sweetest girl in the world.
Yep.
Absolute sweetheart. I'm friends with her on Facebook now.
Yeah.
Sweetest woman ever. And like all this stuff was happening back then. So I'm so glad that, nothing happened to her, but I'm sure she went through hell for that.
Probably.
And that's just the first thing that comes to mind right now.
Yeah.
But all this stuff was happening. So like, I know maybe it can seem to younger generations that our generation in particular can get really hung up on this, but it's because we lived through when it was really bad.
Yeah.
Not that it's
Not
great
that it's
now,
great now.
but
No. But there are a lot more things in place now because of things that happened when we were that age.
oh God. We had school counselors, and okay, I say this with no malice. My own personal experience is that school counselors, certain ones, I question how they got that job because they did way more harm than good.
Well, that goes for some
Therapists
therapists
too.
too.
Yeah, which is why it's important. You can always shop around with your therapist, work with
Yes.
someone in network. Just because you get one that you don't like, please don't let that turn you off of getting help. Yes, sorry,
Yeah.
little PSA in there.
Yep.
Continuing on with the story, even though it's not a good story.
It's really not.
Yeah. So I mentioned Roy having second thoughts. At one point, while having second thoughts, Roy had actually gotten out of the truck. Like he had the pump running.
Yep.
He got out of the truck and he proceeded to reach out to Carter, who told him to get back in, which is what Roy did. This exchange between Roy and Carter was corroborated by phone call logs and messages from Carter recounting the event to a friend a month later. So, like, the police saw that there was phone call logs, and then the friend showed, like, Carter told me this. Like, this is Carter's exact words saying what happened. Carter was actually on the phone with Roy when he suffocated and died, but did not alert authorities or his family that he died. Carter acted shocked and as a grieving girlfriend following Roy's death. Yeah, I'm going to let the angels take that one on. Moving forward to the arrests and the trial. Carter was indicted on February 4th, 2015, and arraigned the next day on charges of involuntary manslaughter, meaning charges brought against her on the 4th. She entered a pleading the next day. A grand jury found that there was enough to charge Carter with, quote, wantonly and recklessly, end quote, assisting Roy's suicide, which is a criminal law standard of behavior. Since Carter was 17 at the time, she was indicted as a youthful offender rather than a juvenile. This meant that she could be sentenced as an adult, which could carry a prison sentence of up to 20 years. Carter was released on a $250,000 bail and pleaded not guilty to the charges. As we talked about earlier, many of the texts between Carter and Roy have been released as part of the trial. And there was several messages, I don't think I included them here, where Carter was just saying, no more pushing it off, no more waiting. Like, you just have to do it. There's so many of those messages, which became crucial in the trial. I have a longer quote here from Rolling Stone. Carter said, according to the Boston Herald, quote, I told him a lot of people loved him. I told him he should come with me and get the help he needed. End quote. But prosecutors plan to argue that her kind words contradict her unlocked text sent before Roy's death. She even seemingly admitted guilt later, texting a friend, it's all my fault because I could have stopped him, but I blank didn't. All I had to say was, I love you and don't do this one more time, and he'd still be here. End of Rolling Stone quote.
What you say matters.
Yes. Yeah. I don't even know if I have the words to describe. Morally reprehensible is what comes to mind.
I feel sick. And not because I am sick. I actually feel sick.
Both. Morally and yes. Yeah. So, a couple of things to note. As we're going through the trial, there was two big things that were really talked about between defense and prosecution. I'm going to get into their arguments in a second. But both Carter and Roy were taking the antidepressant, I might say this wrong, citalopram, Citalopram, also known as Celexa, Celexa. And they were taking it for their depression and anxiety. So in the US, apparently citalopram has a warning on the box stating that it may increase suicidal thinking and behavior in those under age 24. Yep. The defense for Carter requested funds during the trial to hire an expert to explain the effects of a drug like Celexa. However, the judge denied the request, saying, quote, Selexa's effect on Roy was speculative, end quote. And that came from WPRI.com. Roy had also been seeing therapists. Like, he never really stopped seeing therapists, it sounds like. And he was seeing therapists, counselors, and a cognitive behavioral therapist in the weeks leading up to his suicide. So, like, he was getting help. Trying to. How much he put into it, I don't know. But the resources were there. Not blaming Roy for his situation at all.
No.
I'm highlighting this is the context, and this is what the defense is really going to push in the trial. So the prosecution, the ones bringing the charges, that's the state. They focused on Carter's direct involvement in encouraging Roy to end his life. They had 5 key arguments, which I've summarized here. First one, encouragement through text messages. Prosecutors highlighted Carter's persistent and explicit text messages urging Roy to go through with his suicide. They presented messages where she wrote things like, you just have to do it and it's now or never, framing her words as manipulative and coercive.
Yep.
Second argument, phone call during the suicide. The prosecution emphasized that Carter spoke with Roy on the phone while he was in his carbon monoxide-filled truck. They argued that she told him to get back into the truck after he expressed hesitation and second thoughts about taking his life. This call was seen as critical evidence of her active role in encouraging Roy to follow through. Third argument, failure to intervene. Carter was accused of doing nothing to prevent Roy's death, even though she knew he was in immediate danger. That's a big thing in criminal law. Prosecutors argued that she had a duty to act, but instead chose to push him towards completing the act. Fourth argument, desire for attention. The prosecution suggested that Carter was motivated by a desire for attention and sympathy from others, as evidenced by multiple Twitter posts.
Yep.
They argued that she used Roy's death as a way to portray herself as a grieving girlfriend, seeking to gain social and emotional validation from her peers.
It's a pretty good argument there.
Pretty good argument. And the last argument, the fifth one, Carter's awareness of her influence. Prosecutors pointed to texts Carter sent to friends after Roy's death, where she admitted she could have stopped him and expressed her guilt.
Yep.
These admissions demonstrated her awareness of her influence on Roy's actions. So the summary was, prosecution said that Carter's actions and encouragement played a direct and substantial role in Conrad Roy's decision to take his life. Now, Carter's defense team. They had 5 arguments as well. Conrad Roy's mental health history was their first one. The defense emphasized that Roy had a long history of mental health struggles, which was true and documented, including depression and previous suicide attempts. This suggested that he was predisposed to take his own life and that Carter's actions were not the primary cause. Their second argument is the free speech argument. Carter's lawyers argued that her text messages, while controversial and insensitive, I feel like that's an understatement, were protected under the First Amendment as free speech. They contended that her words, however harmful, did not constitute a direct act of causing Roy's death. Their third argument was Roy's personal agency. The defense maintained that Roy acted on his own volition and made a conscious decision to end his life. They argued that Carter could not be held criminally responsible for his independent actions. Fourth argument, impact of medication on Carter's behavior. That's the Celexa.
That's what yeah. That's where my mind went initially when you said that.
Yeah. And for those who don't know, there are a lot of really interesting studies that have come out about how some of the antidepressant drugs have, can I say they made things worse? You should look into it, but some are good, some not so good. Look into it. Always ask questions with your doctor. This is in no way medical advice telling you to get off anything. That is a conversation between you and your doctor. That is not what we're doing here. But Carter's defense suggested that her mental state, talking about Carter taking Celexa and judgment may have been influenced by the antidepressant medication. They argued that this might have impaired her reasoning and understanding of the consequences of her messages. This is where they tried to hire the expert.
Yeah,
they were
I could
trying to
see
prove, that it impacted the frontal lobe, and that would have made her incapable of fully understanding her actions.
Yeah.
That was what they were trying to go for. And then really the fifth one that they were really leaning on as part of just a legal standard is that she was physically absent. The defense highlighted that Carter was not physically present when Roy died, emphasizing that the ultimate act was carried out solely by him. I mean, that's a reasonable argument. How can you kill someone if you're not there?
Right.
And this is a big deal, and this actually comes up again later. So, after all the arguments were presented, despite the defense's arguments, the court ultimately found Carter guilty of involuntary manslaughter on July 16th, 2017. So this is now 3 years and a couple days after Roy's death.
Yeah.
Justice can be slow in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
The court reasoned that Carter's actions and messages played a significant role in Roy's decision to end his life. The judge that presided over the trial, because Carter waived her right to a jury trial, so she just had the arguments in front of the judge. Judge Moniz? I'm not sure on that one.
No idea.
Yeah. Found that, quote, Roy had broken the chain of self-causation towards his suicides when he exited the truck. The chain of causation is a big thing in criminal law, too. I was just learning about that in the last couple weeks of class. Carter urged Roy to return to his truck, and it was her wanton and reckless encouragement that caused his death, end quote. And those quotes were from Harvard Law Review and MassLive.com. So after the trial, Carter was sentenced on August 3rd, 2017 to a 2.5-year term in jail with 15 months to be served in the Bristol County House of Corrections. The balance of the remaining term was to be suspended and the 5 years of supervised provision to follow. Carter appealed and remained free pending the appeals, but she was instructed to have no contact with the Roy family.
Mm-hmm.
Understandably.
Yeah.
And then for those who are wondering, outside of the U.S., we do have jurisdictions where you can be sentenced to X amount of time, but you may have a secondary part where, like in Carter's case, she was sentenced to 30 months, but she only had to do 15 months served plus 5 years of supervised probation afterwards. It's unique, and I can't explain all of it, nor do we want to do that in this podcast.
No.
So upon appeal, the Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court upheld the original sentence, and Carter began her sentence on February 11, 2019. She had a parole hearing for early release, but the request was denied on September 20th, 2019. Carter appealed to the Supreme Court of the United States, which is the highest court in the land, in July 2018, and her arguments were based under the First and Fifth Amendment grounds. The court declined hearing the case in January 2020, which left her conviction in place. The Supreme Court has the choice of which cases it wants to hear, and sometimes it just decides it's not going to do one.
Yep.
Carter was released from prison after 11 months and 12 days due to good behavior. Under Massachusetts law, inmates can reduce their sentence by 10 days per month for exemplary behavior, which is interesting. Now, after the trial and after the sentencing, you're probably going to recognize some of this. It's media. Maybe you're going to recognize some of this. Multiple shows picked up on this. I mean, this was such a big scandal. Like, this was, I would say, comparable to the Long Island Lolita, which was the original like tabloid big story in 1992, also on the East Coast of New York. We have an episode about that. So just like with the Long Island Lolita, there was multiple shows, specials, movies, documentaries, podcasts about this. Some of the notable ones are 48 Hours, Death by Text, which I've seen parts of it. They did a good job. Lifetime even made a special called Conrad and Michelle, If Words Could Kill. Dateline NBC, of course, picked it up and did something called Reckless. And HBO made a special. And I want to know who named this because I vibe with their naming. It's called I Love You, Now Die. The Commonwealth versus Michelle Carter.
Oh, okay.
That sounds like a title I would come up with.
It does.
That's a grab. And in most recent years, Hulu made a series called The Girl from Plainville, which had Dakota Fanning starring in it. There was this band, and I haven't heard of them. They're called Skinned, SKYND, and they write true crime-inspired music.
Interesting.
I know. I want to look them up. I didn't have time to look them up last night, but I do want to look them up. And they released a single called Michelle Carter. And they released a statement basically saying, like, she had the opportunity to stop him and she didn't. So I have a feeling the song's probably not in favor of Carter.
Well, all right.
No. And the last thing I want to touch on this, and I know this is more interesting to me and probably not to other people, but this case presents really interesting legal question because all of law is based on what do we as a society deem to be criminal behavior.
Right.
This case forced courts to reconsider that classification of criminal behavior. Her actions, would they arise? The court said yes, but in other jurisdictions maybe not. But now it becomes something that we have to look at because now there is a new means for committing crime where it was digital, it was via text.
Yep.
Like it's not something that we really had to think too much about before. So this is something where I know this is not going to be the last that I personally will see of this case in my studies. But I'm sure this is being brought up elsewhere because this decision was only binding in Massachusetts.
Right.
It's not binding on other decisions. If it had gone to the Supreme Court and been ruled on, then it would be binding. But this is something where if we had a similar case here in Minnesota, like I would be pulling up this case and this ruling to try to make the argument. So I'm very interested to see how it is going forward because when you make these laws, you have to let people know. Like
right.
They have to be informed or have the opportunity to be informed of what the law is. So this might change a lot of things.
Has the potential to.
And it also has the potential to be a really big First Amendment argument for freedom of speech.
Yeah.
I don't have good answers on this one. I think I could study law for quite a while and I still wouldn't have great answers. So that is the story of Conrad Roy.
Be nice to people.
Be nice to people.
That is all I have to say on this.
Yeah. Really the only thing I'm coming back to is just morally reprehensible. That's the only thing that I have. Any other final thoughts or?
No.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us. Just as a reminder, we do appreciate that you are here and plenty of people in your life appreciate that you are there as well. Even if you don't see it, trust me, you're appreciated. If you're feeling at all like Conrad did or Carter, please do seek mental health services. I assure you that there are so many around you, whether it is spiritual, religious based, something through doctors or community. I guarantee you there is so many wonderful things to live for. Please get some help.
And the suicide and crisis hotline,
Yes,
number is also changed to 988.
That's right. I forgot they did that. 988. So if you're in the US, 988.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us. I don't even want to plug the social medias or anything. It just feels wrong. So check us out.
And we will see you next time.
Adios.
Bye.
Yeah, this just felt awful.